also a professor from Germany, from Berlin. And before I invite Professor Katarina Adam to the stage, I want to tell you a little bit about her background. Her main research is the connection between the economy theory and the industry. What does that mean? She is really building a bridge between the economic theory and the industry. And here, she's trying to present us the bridge between the theory of blockchain to the implementation inside the industry. So let me introduce you. Professor Katarina Adam, please come to the stage.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here. Probably my presentation should be there in the background. Looking for this. It's not working. It's a tech conference, and therefore it can't work. Here we go. Okay. The topic is not only blockchain, it's the ICO, which is behind the blockchain. But before I start, I would like to say, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation and being here. It's a great, great pleasure for me. I would like to tell you something about what I'm doing and how we can use blockchain. We heard a lot of things from the previous speaker, and the previous speaker gave us, I think, the kind of the feeling how good, how exciting it is to look at blockchain technology. I would like to summarize this quick and fast, where we can say it's an agreement on what happened in the past. So what we should know is that a blockchain is not a common database. In a common database, you can insert, you can delete, you can shuffle some information, but this is not possible with a blockchain. And therefore, we have some features. We heard about this feature. We also have to think about what kind of blockchain we are going to use while thinking about to implement this in our business. And we can use a private blockchain, a consortial blockchain, or a public blockchain, always depending on the purpose you would like to achieve with that specific kind of blockchain. And that's it. You need to figure out what is the purpose. Why do you think you need a blockchain solution? Probably you don't, and therefore you have to analyze the process itself. There are a lot of benefits while talking about blockchain. We heard about this. We have seen authentication, timestamping, hash function, and the distributed ledger idea. It helps a lot to bring new ideas into the market and to say, okay, we're going to create some new business. And obviously, it is very exciting to create new things based on blockchain technology. We can make business processes smarter or leaner, more efficient, more transparent. We can do so many things with this, and that's very exciting. What is, according to the blockchain, we have a so-called shared platform where we can use or we can work according to the consensus we are going to build. We have the shared ledger idea. We heard about smart contract, that we can implement smart contracts on that, and we can guarantee the privacy. And when you start to think about blockchain, how to implement blockchain, you should go through these 6 questions and ask yourself, is this really, bless you, is this really a need for you? Do you need to share the data among some participants? Do you need to update them in time? The data verification, how important is this? Do you want to eliminate an intermediate? What is about the time-sensitive transaction? How you want to, behave among each other, the interdependency of transaction among the participants. And if you can use this as a tick box and say, yes, 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 you should probably think about the process and how to implement the blockchain. A lot of startups have done this, and they have brilliant ideas. But what do they need when they want to raise up their startup and make it, or let it grow? They need money, a huge amount of money. And this is what we're talking about, fundraising in time of digitalization. So having the blockchain idea in mind, knowing how to use and what kind of excitement is in, well, the next thing what we need is money. And according with the blockchain technology, there's very often something mentioned, and this is the so-called ICO, initial coin offering. And what is behind? Let's see. You can use, when you do your startup, when you run your startup, you can try to do this in a traditional way. Let's say you go and start with family and friend grants. You start while going to a bank, asking for a loan. Probably as a startup you will not get it. Then you will go to a venture capitalist and apply, and hopefully you get some money and you can run, or you can start your startup. A few years ago, a new idea came up. It was crowdfunding, where people, they can donate, or they can also invest small amount of money and help startups, help young people to create their own business idea and to implement this in the market. Well, and right now we have seen the so-called ICO, initial coin offering. Let's see how to compare this to the traditional ideas we've seen, or to the other ones I've mentioned. They have something in common. What we can see is that in common with the venture capitalist, for instance, it is realizable in different phases. So if you want to do an ICO, it is not that you have to do this at the beginning of your career as a company. You can do this whenever you think you're ready for an ICO. Same as with inviting a venture capitalist. The IPO, the same, or which is more or less similar, it is that you are going to issue. You do not issue a share, but you are going to issue a token. And in crowdfunding, well, it's more or less the marketing commodities, what you have in common with them. But there are a lot of differences you have to take into account, and which makes it very interesting to look after an ICO. As you can see, the differences in when you compare this with venture capital. You do not issue a share, and you do not invite a venture capitalist into your company. So there are no rights for a potential venture capitalist to be some part of your management, for instance. The token can be, or they are tradable on special platforms. And yes, you do not sell any shares, so the company is still in your hand, which is sometimes very interesting. When you compare this with an IPO, well, as a startup, I would like to say an IPO cannot done by a startup. You must have a mutual business idea or a tracking on this, so therefore you can't do this. Crowdfunding also more or less limited, and with crowdfunding you never can sell your proportion of that crowdfunding to the market, because there is still no market. So we can summarize this again and say there are some advantages, or a huge amount of advantages, because people go for an ICO, and there are also some challenges or difficulties. Let's start with the advantages. Advantages, as I mentioned before, you do not sell shares. And one thing is very interesting from my perspective is that when you sell the token, you invite potential users as investors to be part of your company. So they have a different kind of a commitment to you and to your company, which seems to be very helpful. Challenge is that sometimes you invite investors which you probably do not want to have on board. So they might want to just only bet on your company, and that's could be sometimes a bit difficult. It is also important to notice that nowadays you have to create a real good story, and only just writing a white paper is not enough nowadays. And we have seen a lot of things in 2017, so it changed, the whole market changed in this way. Probably I should mention encryption versus tokenization. I think here is the audience which know more about that, so that I do not have to dive too deep into that, but probably just to say that with tokenization, we remove the data, and we therefore replace it as a token, and we can use the token for all the things we want to do. It is very often said that tokens are cryptocurrency. All tokens are cryptocurrency. Probably it's right, but we have to be more precisely, and we have to define what kind of token we are talking about. And that's what I would like to do with you now. So we have to think about a token classification framework where we can see ourselves and our potential token. As you can see here, that's a kind of a framework. We can talk about utility token as well as about security token, digital currency, and so-called asset-backed token. So we have a lot of differences we have to take into account while thinking about an ICO, planning things like that. And if you do this, and probably this is typical for my department where I'm from, so we are, as industrial engineers, we are always looking into the process, and we want to make a kind of a roadmap and figure out what are the next steps we have to do. And here, that's the same approach. What kind of purpose you'll have when you want to issue a token? What is the meaning of that token? What kind of token rights are related to that token you want to issue? So as you can see here, you have to think about asset rights, governance, and so on. A lot of things you have to take into account, because this is related to the underlying value of the token. And if you have no idea, well, there will be no underlying value. But the underlying value could be asset or equity or network or digital currency. And according to this, you also have to take the legal classification into account. What will happen when you issue a token, and what kind of value is there, and what kind of legal consequences you have to face out of this. And then the technical implementation seems to be, yeah, it's also difficult, but it's not that hard. So here are the archetypes we are going to discuss, and we are talking. So cryptocurrency and tokenized asset platform could also be an idea, or token as a share. And there's one thing I really would like to emphasize. As a professor, I try to teach my students the things which are going on in the market, and therefore I became a co-founder. How can I learn better the business when as a co-founder, you have to learn, you have to tackle all the problems. And that's the reason why I'm in these two companies, just to figure out what is this? What is blockchain? How can we use blockchain in processes? What do we need to learn for the whole journey? And how can we think about raising money in modern times? And this is helpful for me and to educate my students somehow. And according to this, I would like to close my speech with a word to say, blockchain technology, you can ban it, but you can't make it go away. So, and for this, I would like to say thank you so much. Please be more Schumpeter, dare to disrupt industry, dare to disrupt processes. Thank you so much for your attention.